Hello, Meg. This isn't exactly a poster or flashcards, but this is my revision because I'm gonna be honest with you. I hate revising. Um, I really hate it. So I thought I'd dress up quite nicely for you and run through not the notes I took and then the notes of those notes on a video for you because I like making videos, but I hate revising. So if you're wondering, oh, why has Abby sent me a video instead of doing the actual dill? Because the video is the dill. Thank you. Okay, we're going to start off with pragmatic knowledge. What is pragmatic knowledge? Well, it's basically it's the context, really, that you need of something. So if I say, do you mind doing that? The pragmatic knowledge is knowing what that would be. So if we're talking about making tea, and you say, do you want some chicken? And I was like, do you mind doing that? That would be, do you mind making the chicken for tea? And that would be the pragmatic knowledge needed. Next up, Livingston's politeness. Positive and negative. Negative isn't bad politeness. But positive politeness is kind of just like your normal politeness, isn't it? Like, there's no... just your please and thank yous, being like a decent human being. Similar to like positive... we'll get onto that later, hold on. Negative politeness is overly polite, like trying to excuse your intruders. If you go to like a shop worker, like, I'm so sorry, but can you please do your job? Not, you obviously won't say that, like, I'm so sorry, do you mind telling me where the cereal is? But like, do you mind doing what you're here to do? But that's negative politeness. Goffman now on faces, lovely Goffman. Which is what is negative politeness links into faces because you want to keep your positive face, which is wanting others to perceive you as a nice guy. And negative politeness wants you're respecting the other person's negative face, but I'm not wanting to be disturbed, which is pretty neat. Now we're going to move on to region. I'm just going to go north and south divide here. So south, you've got more standard English, SE, as I refer it to now on. But you don't just have that, you have MLE, which we'll get on later. You have Cockney, you have the Kent accent, you have all these different accents in the south. But they mainly all have closer ties to SE than the north does. The north is more of the local accents, Scouse, Geordie, and they usually go for non-standard English, or NSE, which I'll refer to it now as. But the north has a bigger sense of community, because the accent draws people together, it converges people. Converge and diverge. Converge, you decrease the social distance. Diverge, you increase the social distance. Your accent, yeah. So converges, let's say I converge to someone, obviously my accent is not the Scouse accent, but if I go up to someone and start going a can of cook and a packet of, start doing the Scouse accent, I can't do a Scouse accent, but that would be converging, because I'm reducing the social distance by changing my accent to match theirs, whereas if I had to diverge, I would change my accent by going to more of a standard English compared to the Scouse. So I'd start pronouncing Bath, grass, oh yas. Well, maybe not that, but you know what I mean. And that all leads to standard English ideology, SEI, which is where you think standard English is better than all the other accents. Deborah Cameron did quite a good theory on this, that non-standard English, NSE, is not bad. It's just stigmatized as bad because of the higher classes not using it. Well, historically not using it. Take your pick there. Speaking of class, Trudgill, what a guy. His 1974 Norwich study on how class affects language. He found there was a positive correlation between class and the use of dropping the G which is where instead of saying running, you say running. You know, running, running, and that weird alphabet thing will be on the screen now. So that basically means the more higher class you are, the less you're going to drop the G. You also found that men were more likely to drop the G than women, which is interesting if you want to bring gender into your essays. But also, he found that when people who would usually drop the G started focusing on speeches like reading something out loud or in more of a formal environment, they stop dropping the G and go back to the ing sound, not in, which shows that when they're thinking about it, they revert back to a more of an SE language, which is pretty interesting, kind of conforming to the SEI, Standard English ideology, which is pretty cool. But another cool thing, and a load of cool facts today, is Amanda Cole's study, which found that the dropping of the G actually originated in high Victorian culture, and it went down to the lower classes, and so then the higher classes started to diverge again, and re-added the G. In the south, especially London, there are multiple non-standard English accents, such as MLE, Multicultural London English, which is a very fast-growing, probably one of the fastest-growing accents and dialogues. It's both an accent and a dialogue. Dialect, not dialogue. Both an accent and a dialect of... It's cool, of the English language. It's growing very fast. It's only really taken one generation to kind of become a thing. You know, because you look at someone who speaks Emily and look at their parents, they'll still be speaking Cockney. Which just shows how fast it's growing, and you can probably help blame the internet for that. Now you know how we're all connected better and how things spread more easier. There's less mouth movements than Cockney and Emily. They use innit much more to avoid hard grammar. So instead of saying isn't it or hasn't it to kind of finish sentences, they just go in it. And your pragmatic knowledge of that conversation, there you go, linking it to pragmatic knowledge, would help the entire help understand what that in it means in that one case scenario. Pretty cool. A lot of glottal stopping. It's like bottle of water. You know, kind of just skipping a couple sounds there. TH fronting and TH stopping. So TH fronting is instead of saying with, you say with. You get rid of the TH, you replace it with another sound. And TH stopping would be, you know, that to dat, or thing to ting. And which is very interesting. And that's what I have for MLE. But Americans have their own MLE, basically. The AAVE, African American Vernacular English. It is just basically MLE, but American. There's a load of similarities. One of the differences is there's a lot of consonant clusters that are dropping. They're just getting rid of them. So if the end of a word, you just drop it. Can't think of an example right now because I didn't put one in my book, which is annoying, I know. But a consonant cluster is more than two consonants together, two or more consonants together, and they just drop it at the end of a sentence. Because they do drop the G as well, and they also do TH fronting and stopping. But some dialect features of AAVE would be I been bought it and I done bought it, showing past tenses and the uses of different type of words and just getting rid of some words. You know, copular deletion, such as getting rid of the copular verb. You know, he is trying, just go to he is trying, goes into he trying. Pretty neat, y'all. Ain't is also used quite commonly in there. That's why I put it. Charles DeBose in 1992 said AAVE speakers are bidialectal because they can easily swap between AAVE and then SE, which is pretty cool. You know, depending on the social situation, because when you're with friends, you speak more AAVE. If you're in a more formal work, if you're in more formal like an interview, a speech, you usually go to SE. usually. Obviously, there are always going to be exceptions to the rule, because it's English. I'm going to get onto some theorists now. I'm just going to do a big section on Labov. In 1972, he said AAVE, back on AAVE, was complex and consistent rules. It had complex and consistent rules, showing speakers are not lazy nor unintelligent, which is what the speakers of AAVE were related to in the 70s and 80s, and even today there's still stigmatism around the accent, being like from the thug life and all that, but it's just their culture, innit? Labov also did a study in America with Martha's Vineyard. Very good study, similar to like Trudgill's, which can relate to a lot of things. It shows how an accent can change over time with foreign influence. So Martha's Vineyard was an island in America it was a fishing community. It was kind of isolated until tourists came in, and before that they had a lot of accent. They had their own community, their own accent that they used quite often. But then tourists started coming in, and what Labov saw was the locals were diverging, and their accent became stronger and stronger, and it became more pronounced, which showed the sense of community was growing stronger, and the sense of identity was growing stronger with the tourists. But what I also noticed is in the younger parts of the community, with the people who left the island to be educated, they came back with a weaker accent because they converged with people who they met off the island. So their accent became weaker to reduce the social distance. Which again, everything just links back to converging and diverging with accents. Makes it pretty, well, not pretty, but easier. You can also see this in Chambers' study in 2008 with Canadian children and Canadian adults. Canadian children would say Z when going through the alphabet because of the alphabet song, which was American. But when they grew up, Canadians go back to the normal British Z to increase that social distance, to diverge from the American pronunciation and create some social distance between their neighbours to the south. Holmes's 1992 study is pretty good. Here's the graph. I don't know why I point it, it's going to show up on the screen. But you can see you've got quite an obvious high point when they're young. Quite an obvious high point when they're quite young. But as they get into the middle age, 30s, 40s, 50s, and they enter the world of work, this use of slang just plummets. It goes right down to the bottom, kind of flatlines for a bit. Then when you enter retirement age, 70, 80, 90, it skyrockets again. And that could be, Holmes equated that to social pressures, and the social pressure of being a kid. You want to break the rules as a kid, don't you? But when you're older, when you go into the work, the social pressure there is to follow the rules, be another one of the drones, break out the system, break out the matrix. Sorry, I don't think you get that reference. Apologies. I'm going to keep it in, but I don't think you get that reference. But yeah. The social pressures of being in the world of work, you want to reduce the use of slang and increase the use of SE. And that's why you see a drop off. As soon as you enter retirement age, social pressures are gone again. So you can use your slang as much as you want. Because again, there's no social pressures in the world of work to use SE. You can use whatever type of language you want because you're retired, you're not working anymore. Which many would see as a bonus. But then again, you're on a fixed income. Rory Alderson in 2020. This is a very interesting study about how glottal stopping can affect how you're viewed. So he had 4 people just use their voice, not their face. 2 boys, 2 girls, and different amount of glottal stoppings. And then to an audience, they couldn't see them, and they had to rate the characteristics. First off, you have Chris. He had low levels of glottal stopping. And he was seen as educated but a bit geeky, a bit weird, a bit nerdy, you know. Which is interesting, where as you look at the girl, Ellie, who had low levels of glottal stopping, she was seen as educated as well, but also as sensible and attractive as well. She was found to be attractive, but the audience never actually saw her. They just knew how she spoke. Which is crazy, innit? Then you had Chris. No, you had Luke, sorry, with high levels of glottal stopping, and he was seen as uneducated, but funny and friendly. Where if you go to Amy, who had high levels of glottal stopping but was a girl, she was also seen as uneducated, but chavvy and annoying. And that there shows how gender can affect how we perceive people based on their language, and how their identity can be formed with gender, which is a nice thing to put in your essay. Speaking of essays, how do you write an essay? What I've got is, in your opening paragraph, you want to just answer the question. Just answer the question. So if the question is identity formed by the way we use our language? You will say, our identity is somewhat formed from the use of our language. You can see this when in the use of slang, gender, and a third point, because I'm just making this off the top of my head, it's literally not wrote down. It's not wrote down anywhere. You open those paragraphs, and then you use your 3 points from your essay in that opening paragraph, and you write those 3 points in a pose paragraph. 3 different pose paragraphs for your 3 different points. You want to do your point. P stands for point. O stands for own knowledge / examples, as the sun has just come out. S stands for studies, so Lincoln, Trudgill, Labroff, Chambers, Holmes, all those studies, link them in, as many examples as you can. You also want to do a for and against your point. To get extra marks, you want a for argument and against argument. And then you want to evaluate a mini conclusion, a mini judgment at the end of your statement, but don't put in conclusion at the end of your point. So if you go like, in conclusion, age does affect our identity, say like, to summarize this point, or to conclude this point, to finish off this point, age can affect our identity in the way we use our language. And then your conclusion, don't overcomplicate it. Your conclusion. Restate your answer to the question, and just restate your points. Basically, just start a paragraph all over again. There you go. There's my revision. I've done it on a video because I hate revising, but I love making videos. Also, I hate flashcards. I didn't revise the GCSEs. The only revision I did was past papers. I did like a past paper or subject, I think, in school. Wasn't even at home. But I hate revising. I kind of want to revise, but flashcards don't work for me. Posters don't work for me because I just never look at them. But I'll watch videos, and I like making videos, and I like watching videos. So I'll just watch this video. You can watch it as well. Hope you enjoyed. Thank you.